Welcome to Uncovering Utah and Beyond, where today we're going to go beyond Utah into Wyoming and learn a little bit about the Castle Gardens Petroglyph Site and possibly close to the geographical center of Wyoming. If you like this content, don't hesitate to like, share, comment, and subscribe. So let's jump in. The first few images you're going to see here are maps. So this first map is anchoring us to where we are going to be. And if you look to the bottom left-hand side of this image, I know the font is a little bit small, but you can see Salt Lake City on the bottom left. If you can't see the font, you can hopefully see the lake. And then on the top left, you'll see Yellowstone. So I'm guessing it's still probably a good 3-ish hours minimum drive from Riverton to Yellowstone. I could be wrong. We haven't taken that drive yet. However, when we're then thinking about going from Riverton to the Castle Gardens Petroglyph Site, in this image you can see that map. So you can see that there's two different ways you can go to the Castle Gardens Petroglyph Site from Riverton, Wyoming. A northern direction through Shoshoni on Route 20. Yes, Route 20, and then a southern route through another road. And I can't remember the name of that road. I feel like it's Oil Rig Road or something like that. So in this last map that I'm showing here, it shows the route from Riverton, Wyoming to Castle Gardens Campground. The reason I'm showing this particular map is because sometimes when I was typing in Castle Gardens, just generally, I was also getting this other site that's quite far away. It's almost close to Tensleep, Wyoming, which we did that drive, and that's a really long drive. That would be really long to go to Tensleep. We did not go to the Castle Gardens Campground. That's on our to-do list, our travel to-do list sometime later. But just if you do plan to go to the Castle Gardens Petroglyph Site, just ensure that the Google Maps is saying it's the Castle Gardens Petroglyph Site and not the Castle Gardens Campground, because you'll be having a much longer drive than anticipated, and I don't think that there's petroglyphs at the other Castle Gardens Campground site. So you might be disappointed. So that's why I have this map here. So hopefully that helps you avoid getting off on the wrong trail. Now, when you enter the Castle Gardens rock site, you have this really nice signboard that the BLM has put up that has all the information that they've put together to kind of introduce you to this site. So I'm going to go ahead and read some of these boards to you. I know me reading these boards will make this longer, but it's not that easy to read them even when pausing this video, so I thought I would read it out. So here on this first board, which is in the middle of the display, on the left-hand side, it says, what, when, and how, the 4-stage production process. Stage 1, the face of the stone was wet with a hide, likely softening the surface for step 2. Step 2, the rock was then smoothed out with a flat rock. Step 3, a sharp bone was then used to incise the rock with design. And then step 4, the petroglyph was then painstakingly decorated with a paintbrush. And on the right side, which is a little harder to read, I feel, in the picture, the Castle Gardens Rock Art Complex contains what is commonly known as Plains Indian rock art. The combination of incisions, petroglyphs, and paintings, pictographs, within the same shield motifs is testimony to an extraordinary investment of time and effort. The Castle Gardens art style is best known for its distinctive style of shields and is characterized by a multi-step process. The rock art you see here dates between 1300 and 1550 AD. So that's the first board. And the second board that you see here would have been on the left side of the display, and I will go ahead and read that. The title is A Place Important to Many, and this one is harder to read than the other ones in the video, so again, I'm actually zooming in on this picture on my laptop to read it to you. Oral traditions and cultural practices of various Plains Indians groups attest to their close ties with rock art sites, including Castle Gardens. Many Native Americans still visit these places and have special names for them. Arapaho Indians, for example, refer to Castle Gardens as Huneki, holy water. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Indigenous peoples consider these as transformative places that are sacred and need to be respected. Shields and other artifacts depicted in the rock art at Castle Gardens are similar to those made and used by various Native American Indian groups living in the region. Although different Plains Indian groups may ascribe slightly different meanings to specific rock art, a shared perspective is that rock art occurs at places where events are commemorated and where people go to seek and record their visions. On the right side of this sign, we see a map of the general geographical area covering Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and Arizona. And superimposed over that, we see the borders or the general areas where the native indigenous Shoshone, Crow, Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, Navajo, Kiowa, and Apache likely called home. Under this map, it says Plain Indians groups who have ties to Castle Garden. Please help us preserve this place. This area continues to have spiritual significance to various Native American Indian groups. Help preserve it by staying on the trail. And the last board, which would have been on the left side of this display, on the top it says Ho Niki, and it also has some other wording next to it that it's hard for me to read here. It says pronunciation, Ho Neshi. Hopefully now I'm saying it correctly. Holy water is the meaning in Arapaho. So in the middle, there's a big title that says a unique place in the landscape, and it shows a map of the trail, and it shows the different spots on the trail that are significant. They're listed with plants, geology, graffiti, gateway, elk emergence, bear emergence, turtle, bear medicine, fertility, techniques, thunderbird, decay, and heraldry. And on the bottom is a key. It's actually kind of challenging to figure out if we saw all of these spots and aligning the spots with what's on the map, which you'll come to know as I go through the rest of the video. Now, while those signs are a wonderful introduction and welcome to the area, they weren't really helpful in helping us understand which site aligns with which point on the map, because none of the points had a sign in front of them to say which one was which. So we have some good guesses of which one might be which. This might be Gateway. I'm not quite sure. There were 2 bridges on the path, which were really amazing, but you can also see that these rock monuments are quite impressive and beautiful. So that also is very distracting to kind of understand where the different sites are located. But you can see that some of the petroglyph sites have these fences around it, and the fences have holes cut out so you can put your face into them. Likely this might have been elk emergence. I don't know. I don't think I got that right, because then the previous one would not have, the previous place where I said it was gateway, that probably wasn't gateway. At some point we definitely have to go back. Definitely want to go back now after we've done a little bit more research after coming back, but it is a pretty remote location, obviously. And here you can see there's a fork in the path. And on the right side are those 2 monuments, rock monuments, and one of them might have the turtle. And the turtle might have been facing in the other direction, but the turtle is no longer actually part of the trail anymore. Some years ago, someone actually etched it out of the stone and stole it, and that is now part of a museum display somewhere in Wyoming. So now here we are going through the zigzag part of the trail, which is, again, you can see the scenery is just so phenomenal that there might be more petroglyphs on some of these rocks, but it just is so, the scenery itself is so magical that, and I feel this way at most petroglyph sites that we've been to in Utah, like, you have to kind of go there multiple times or actually set aside a lot of time to actually stay in that location. We were here about 1 hour and 15 minutes, and this is kind of the last point on the map, which is heraldry, which I think this one is heraldry. It has the most displays of the shields and everything, and it seems to line up on the map with the last point. This is heraldry. But there's so much to see on these trails, and I feel like, we saw at the beginning of the trail, people had signed in and they put their name and how much time that they've spent here, and most people had written they spent around an hour, and we spent around an hour, and I don't think we saw everything we needed to see. Maybe if you are able to go there with a guide, someone who knows where to find all the petroglyphs, and the lighting is also really good and everything to see them, it might make it a little easier, and you might be able to see everything you need to see in an hour. But I feel I definitely want to go back. You can see that they've definitely maintained this place really well, being out in the middle of nowhere. The trails are really nice and wide, and that zigzag part is the only part that has some elevation, but it's not really that bad. And they have benches every little ways that you can sit on that make this trail pretty good. I mean, actually the way down into it, there's elevation going down into it, and you really only feel that elevation a little bit when you're coming back up. But I feel like this is such a good place to come and just be. To me, this feels like a place that's in the middle of nowhere. In this entire video, you as a viewer only see my husband and no other people in this whole video. This whole trip took us about 4-ish hours, and we saw no people the entire journey. In many ways, it's very relaxing to be in such areas where you're not in the middle of crowds or buildings or man-made structures, and just experiencing the open land. You can see how the land is. I mean, here are a lot of rock monoliths, but most of the drive was these short sagebrushes and sometimes those evergreen trees, but not very many of those along the way, and more animals than people. So to me, this feels like in the middle of nowhere. Possibly back in the day when these petroglyphs were created, this was a popular travel route for the people who created these petroglyphs. Any thoughts into that? If you have any expertise to share, feel free to share that in the comments. And it looks like we're getting close to the end of the trail. So that's where you enter from, and then you could park in this round circle. That's about it. Just come to the end of the road, even if Google Maps says it's before that. And then there's a fence here with the board that tells you about the place, and you have to open the gate with this chain link chain and then close it back up. Then you're good to go. So we walked through the trail, and now obviously time to drive back. I wanted to give you some views of how the roads looked. I drove in, so I couldn't take a video while I was driving, and I don't yet have a mount to mount my camera on the windshield. Something on my shopping list. So you can see the roads looked pretty decent. I mean, and you can see also there's some raindrops on the windshield. It did rain and drizzle a little bit on the way out. Actually, I kind of feel like perfect weather. The lighting was pretty good to see most of the petroglyphs, but since we didn't really know where to see them all, we obviously need to go back. You can see in the distance the fins on the mountains, the red rocks. What a beautiful, beautiful area. Definitely plains looking, and a lot of shrubs. And you can see there's nobody else. There was nobody parked at the drive when we left, and nobody will be passing us in any of this video, and nobody passed us in any vehicles on the way in or the way back. The 1 hour and 15-minute drive to and from Riverton, I saw 0 people. We saw about 10 pronghorn, 2 bunny rabbits. We saw, there was some cows, the free-range cows. And then we saw like 2 or 3 ranch houses set way far away from the main road, that, what was it, oil rig road? These are the rock monuments that I mentioned were about, I don't know, a couple, maybe a mile or a little bit over a mile before you get to the rock art site. Here's one of those pronghorn. Actually stopped to say hi and then ran away. And these cattle guards, so we didn't see any cattle inside the area, which is kind of nice. But then, at some points, we did see cattle on this drive. So you can see the road condition here. It's still pretty flat and easy to navigate. No mud puddles, no water puddles, no washboarding. Sometimes you just have to be a little careful where the tires from the previous people had rutted in the road, but generally speaking, it's, it was a very easy drive, a very pleasurable drive, and just got to kind of, dump out your brain and not think about much. It's so relaxing to actually drive these roads, is, my opinion about it. So you can see even the weather still was holding up for us. The sprinkling had stopped. In fact, I don't think it sprinkled anymore after that one point. And no rain, no snow. So it was like a perfect outing. Oh, here's some more sprinkling. So I was wrong. I hope you liked watching this video. Have you been to this petroglyph site at Castle Gardens Petroglyph Site near Riverton, Wyoming? Share your thoughts. And maybe if you know what some of those petroglyphs are that I zoomed in on, if you would be so kind as to write the name of that petroglyph as noted on the map, how it was identified on the map, and the timestamp. That way I can kind of know which ones that we've seen and which ones we have to go back to see again. You can see it's still, it's still sprinkling, but not enough to cause any kind of muddy roads or slippery roads, which was really great. And we made it back to Riverton. We went to Riverton, and then there's like a casino, I think Wind River Casino. We went to eat there, a very good deal, get big portions, definitely for a lot less than you would spend in Salt Lake City. And we had the best, I'm telling you, the best jalapeno cream soup in there. Hey, there's some pronghorn. So definitely check out that casino and the restaurant in there if and when you go this direction. Here we are approaching another cattle guard, and this is the end of the dirt roads where we would, take that right-hand turn to go east back to Riverton. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for spending your time on uncovering Utah and beyond.